sorted. These are the principles that I think we're putting forward. I think these are good principles to actually go forward to a resolution. I don't think it's going to satisfy everyone. There are fundamental differences of opinion about what is proposed here, and particularly, I'd say, with the RWSS. You're not going to get total agreement on that. I think what you are going to get agreement on, and particularly with Forest and Bird and Fish and Game and Hawke's Bay Regional Council, is point 5, which is that we are there to get the in-stream ecological health of our waterways up. And that has always, in my view, and what I've seen and what I've read, has always been the main principle behind anything that we're doing in that particular catchment. Plan Change 6 and the RWSS, which are very inextricably linked. So I don't think we're ever going to get complete satisfaction on this one. There are going to be those people who are against it and those who are for it. But I think this is a way forward, and I certainly hope that it is achieved through the conferencing and through sitting down in one way or another, like you said, and trying to come to some sort of resolution.
Thank you. Councillor Barker, I think you had your hand up there.
Thank you. Firstly, I wanted to look at the issue you raised about the time for a cup of tea has passed. I agree with you on that at this point. The point I was making, I guess, inarticulately, was we should have been having these discussions a long time ago. And that's the thing that I want to get out of this, is to say, Fish and Game and Forest and Bird are part of our community, and they represent to the wider community a very important element. They're almost, in my view, like the miner's canary. People look to Fish and Game and Forest and Bird. If they're okay, then they say we're okay. If Fish and Game or Forest and Bird are upset, then people say, well, there must be an issue here. So they're really important stakeholders in our community who we should have the best of relationships with, and in general, we do. That's my perception of it. But on this, things have got a bit wobbly. And I would hope that we learn from this, that should we get into a future discussion like this, that long before we get to the legal processes, we have jawed this thing to a point where we find we simply cannot agree. I don't think we've done that here. That's my concern. To me, court processes are the last resort. They're not the first resort when all else has failed. I'd like to say that I think this has been a good debate. There's been a divergence of views, and I think it's healthy, and I think it sends a good message to our community that this council is fully engaged on this. There is a divergence of views. We take it very seriously, and we're having a robust discussion. I think that is a very important message to be sent. Whether we agree all on the same issue or not is not, in my opinion, the key issue. The point is we take this very seriously, and people have come to this with clear views and articulate them and have put them on the table. I think that says a very good thing about the health of the debate. The last point I'll come to is I'm in Councillor Bevan's camp on this, and I would prefer these to have gone individually, because I am having difficulty with element 3 of that. It's the one that does cause me the concern, and I am not completely wedded to the idea that we should have no fresh evidence at all. I would have thought a more permissive clause, that where it was appropriate, it was helpful to the process, then we should do. But it was simply to go fresh evidence to go and relitigate everything, I'd be opposed to that. You with me? But where it was by consensus that this was going to be helpful to the process to hear fresh evidence, get better ideas, in the light of our experience, I would have said, that's an appropriate thing to do. But the way we've written this, we've said no fresh evidence. I just think that the line there is just a bit too firm for me. But that's my view. So on that point, I think 3 is too tough, and if you're going to put all of them in one point, then I feel I'm going to, on balance, have to vote against it for just that one reason alone. If that was softened, I'd feel better about it, and I'd be more happy with it.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you. I'd like to thank staff for this report, and yes, I'm speaking in favour of the recommendation that we receive the report and that we identify the principles and adopt them as discussed today. I'd like to just remind my colleagues around the table of the fact that we're at the pointy end of a very long journey, and earlier on in this journey, and I'm going back possibly 5 years, and there are at least 5 of us around the table who were part of the stakeholder engagement group that was established to take the community on the journey with this whole Ruatana for water storage process. Within that community journey, we had forest and game, fish and bird, tai whenua, forest and bird, fish and bird. You're with me anyway. Tai whenua reps. We had political representatives, we had community groups, we had the farming community representatives, water users and potential water users, future irrigators. At every meeting, we used to say, who else should be around the table? So at every step along the way, particularly forest and bird and fish and game have been there on the journey. To suggest they weren't there having a cup of tea after every meeting is just simply not true, because they were there, and the progress we made at those meetings and along the way was absolutely incredible. If you think we've come down to, a pointy issue where we haven't quite agreed, well, the number of issues we agreed along that journey are just, it's a disservice to say we're not talking at all. I look forward to the day when we're talking more, but at the end of the day, those 2 groups decided to walk away from the table because there were some areas they couldn't agree, and at a high political level, their masters, whatever you may call them, decided that they were over collaboration. So that has been a very challenging part of this process, but I endorse and commend the Regional Council for the effort they have put into the stakeholder engagement process. And as you hear, I'm pretty firm and passionate about the fact that we can't say we're not talking, because my goodness, we've talked and talked and talked. I'm pretty pleased with this report. At the end of the day, we've got a readily understandable, practical to implement physically and economically directive that is consistent with the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. We're also pretty clear in here that while we're not instructing the board to go and get further evidence, it is up to a board of inquiry under an RMA process to go and instruct further evidence should they require it. So you're pointing at me, sorry? Oh. So that's up to the board to do that. If they feel they haven't received sufficient technical evidence, well, it's quite within their rights to do it. And it is their duty under the RMA to only deal with the information that is on the table. So we're not directing them to do anything that's illegal, I think. So yes, I'm obviously in support of this, and hopefully after some of you have listened to me passionately speak, you may reconsider your voting. Thank you.
Mr. Mohi.
Yeah, just to endorse what Councillor Hewitt said, I was part of those talks 5 years ago. Lots of cups of teas, lots of elbow jolting, but in the end, the differences had to go to a higher decision.
Councillor Dick, you reserved your right. You're happy. You wish to sum up, Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I do. And I'd like to, first of all, pick up on the engagement and the collaboration, that approach that has been there. And I thank Councillor Hewitt for outlining that process very clearly as it was with the stakeholder group, and I'll affirm that everything she said was absolutely correct, and Mr. Mohi for his input into that. But further and beyond that, my understanding is, in fact my knowledge is, that this council continued once the once the proposed plan change was there, to continue to attempt to engage with forest and with fish and game, who sometimes were very reluctant to accept and take up that offer. But right up to the start of the hearing, there were attempts at discussing these issues prior to going into the hearing. However, once the hearing process started, again, this council fully participated with integrity in the collaborative process of conferencing. So, Mr. Chairman, are we having a discussion outside this, or are we? This council properly participated fully in all the conferencing that was able to occur, and they did so with total integrity. So there has been no question of lack of collaboration. We are now, as you have pointed out, and has Councillor Hewitt, we're at the pointy end of this. We are in a legal process. We didn't ask for that legal process to be taken to this point, but we have to engage with it. We have to follow the rules of that engagement. And again, we're properly following those rules of engagement. So there is no question about our failing to be open with our various stakeholders. I really would like to focus on some of the things that have been said around the particular principles. One is that we are not supporting new evidence, but based on the evidence. There is no question either in the Board of Inquiry finding that they lacked the evidence to make a decision, or in the High Court consideration that there was insufficient evidence to base a decision on. Therefore, the amount of evidence actually has not been questioned by either the board or by the court, and therefore it is appropriate that we consider that the evidence has actually been already heard by everybody. On the matter of the rewritten condition should reflect the Board of Inquiry's view it's not appropriate to require individual farmers. That again, the High Court did not find any fault with that particular provision. It was in the deeming provision that they didn't contribute, not that they should be individually measured. And therefore, I think that again, that principle is absolutely in keeping with what this council has already decided.
1 minute.
Supported, is in keeping with the Board of Inquiry and with the High Court direction. So again, it's a principle that should actually follow through. And just finally on the in-stream ecological health, again, the High Court differentiated between appropriate measures to monitor land use and the reason for the DIN being a biological measure for in-stream health and the importance of that. I don't think in any way, the way this is written, this principle is written, results from that position. And so we are upholding the fact that we do need to use biological indicators and that we need to meet the requirements of the NPS on freshwater 2014. And I think that's a principle we should be proud to adhere to. That's what I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And against, please. Thank you. It is you calling for division, Councillor. All those in favour? And against, please. You're good? Righto. Thank you. And thank you, Lara. You are welcome to stay, but as long as you're not charging us for that. Okay, Mr. Collins, please. Annual Plan Progress Report for the 6 months, the 31st of December 2014. Unfortunately, Mr. Drury's unable to be with us today, which I would normally take as a bad sign when you're doing a report if he's not here. But no, he's had other duties to attend to today, so unfortunately he's not here. But welcome, Mr.
Great.
Collins.
Thank you.
No, he's
No, not quite.
no, he's not.
Yes. So, yeah, great. So I'm glad you're all warmed up for the finance report now. So, just
That was
before
game.
lunch, just revved up,
That's a
ready to
game
go.
comment.
Yes, as you have heard, Paul's away for today, so he's left me in charge, which could be interesting. So we'll truck on through it. Just a reminder that rates are due at the end of this month. So if you haven't done that yet, we don't want your name on any lists that we need to check up later. So you can do that at lunchtime. You may see some lines out there. It seems to be our busy week. People leave to the last minute. So the rates team are very busy there and hopefully taking all that rates money in.
Should you do it online, Councillor Graham? Might be quicker.
It was very good. And we have been back for a few weeks in finance, and obviously our focus lately has been on LTP process, the 10 years that we've been taking you through. Still very much in the midst of that, but also need to kind of look at this year that we're currently tracking through. So before you blink, you're 6 months through, and we're just bringing those results back to you and any outliers or anything that we think is of concern that we will highlight. I will highlight since I'm the only one here. Although there's not too much in that basket. So you have in front of you the full report, which is our usual financial report, as well as the big chunk at the back, which is our commentary on all of our different projects, and seeing how they're tracking through the first 6 months. So hopefully you've had opportunity to have a look through those, and if you do have any questions, we've got most of the managers here that we can you can pick those up and run with those as we go. So the first page to start at is on 21, which is our operating statement for the year, and as you're well aware, we're running that pro rata that we were looking at last year and tweaking those. So we've done a comparison to that, and there's not a great deal of differences to really comment on as far as an overall groups of activity situation, as well as our regional income is reasonably on track with where we thought it would be this time of year. So really the only one that we've highlighted there with a little bit of a comment is we did that reforecasting at the 3-month mark, which highlighted the big differences we thought would impact us this year, which is the timing of the RWSS money, if that's necessary, when that would be taken out, the differences between obviously the 6% return on that and the current interest rates that we're getting, and those were our major kind of issues, which we've tweaked the budget to reflect that, and we've been basing our comparatives off those.
Just out of interest,
yes.
Every month that investment gets delayed, what is the cost in terms of interest return versus dividend return?
That's a good point. So yeah, obviously 6% was our return there. We're currently tracking at about, I think it's 4.75 at the highest. So obviously that difference is on 60-ish million. Is decent money, but I guess our reforecast that we did at that 3 months took that into consideration. So obviously what we're comparing against is that reforecast, what we thought it would be, and we are tracking at what we thought it would be, about that 4.75, which is potential that may go down further. It's interesting to see what the banks are doing over the next 6 months. A lot of that is locked in around to the 4 to 6 month mark anyway, so we wouldn't be, the main concern would probably be next year. If these continue to track down, we might have to make some interesting decisions with our LTP process. But at the moment, we're looking okay there. And so the group's activities themselves, we've got the detail for you. I think it's around page 26, which breaks it down line by line.
21.
Sure. Oh, sorry, I haven't moved on. But
yeah, don't move too quick.
No.
Well, it's a pretty amazing result, really. I mean, as you pointed out there. I just wonder, what is a cost centre adjustment?
Yes.
That actually helps your results.
It doesn't at this time of the year, because it's actually, the cost centre adjustment was, if you can remember back to October where we presented, Paul set out what those extra costs we had to fund, and obviously our drop in interest return we had to try and take into account. And there were a couple of positives which we had come out of the audit process the year before, which we can do this year, and they are the cost centre adjustments, and they were a sick leave provision. Audit had a good look at it and said it's too high, bring that back. So I think that was about 70,000 off the top of my head. I think it was around that figure. And the other portion of that was our staff time on the RWSS is obviously a capital account. We put in 6 months worth of their time on there, but in reality that's moving out and out, so there'll be more time spent there that's a saving to our bottom line, basically. So that's what that is. That won't come really into effect until the year is out, because we've obviously budgeted in that first 6 to 7 months, I think it was. So at the end of the year, we think we'll have some savings in that respect, which will help offset some of these challenges that we've got facing us. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah, if there's anything else actually on that front page, the detail behind that is set out project by project on page 26 onwards, which you may want to delve into, you may not, but it will be reflective in the commentary that we've also got there at the back for each of the groups of activity, just to see how they're tracking what, and what's been going on. I guess the executive summary is that things are tracking as they usually do for us. We tend to get to this stage of the year and we've kind of spent 40% of what we were going to, and the next 6 months are our really busy time. Obviously that summer, autumn work that we do a lot of, and that the cost for that coming in. So if you do have any questions on those, and I guess the commentary themselves, this might be a good point to take those.
Any questions, Councillor Belford?
Let me just find my fold downs here. The on page 46, I guess it is, there's a discussion of riparian planting, which says that we do 0.5 kilometers a year. Is that?
Yeah, I can answer
Seems
that,
like a
and
pretty
I
small
think
number.
the to be real, that is about what we do. However, we're struggling to match what we do with that recommendation, because we do a lot of interplanting into existing areas, and so it's not really easily measured. We're proposing to change that substantially, and that in the new LTP, just to better reflect something that we can report against. However, in this one refers specifically to the Heretaunga Plains Flood Control and Drainage Scheme. It is, so in addition to that, we have ongoing planting in the Upper Tukituki. We have ongoing planting associated with our land or sustainable land management project.
Okay, I have two couple. Keep going. On page 51, there's the West Shore replenishment is noted. What does that? I couldn't find the corresponding. What does that cost, and how long are we committed to doing that?
That is an ongoing annual program. Cost approximately $120,000 to $130,000 per year, 50% of which is met by Napier City Council. And it is an ongoing annual program set out in this long-term plan and the proposal for the next one.
Okay, and
Just kind of a supplementary question to that. I support that, but is that our position with other coastal communities, that we will do 50-50 JVs on anything that's done? Is that a general principle?
No, it's not. And this one is a historical, I suppose, situation where when it was started, there was a lot of debate and discussion about the impact of the port on West Shore, and obviously council, being owner of the port, took a pretty pragmatic view, and that's where it has stayed. So it is a situation specific to West Shore.
Does it establish a precedent in your mind?
No.
Well, that's exactly what I had in my mind too.
Sorry. Councillor Belford, you had another question there?
yeah, there's a. I'm sorry. I might jump to somebody else here. I have one more question, but I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Page 55. It talks about establishing climate stations. What is a climate station?
So climate stations, rainfall, temperature, collects data on those sorts of things that are scattered throughout the region.
How many of those do we have?
70, 80.
Soil moisture.
Yeah, all those things.
Okay.
Very good, yeah.
Yep.
We discussed it about 6 months ago.
If we're asking general, just on the balance sheet,
Yeah, absolutely.
so we nearly got $1 million worth of employee entitlements. Oh, sorry, 24. I presume, I have two questions really. I presume that's mostly holiday pay?
Correct. Yeah, holiday pay, sick leave. So our sick leave is, as just mentioned, a little bit too high. The ratio that we've been given to work it out, they've revisited that, and we'll bring that down slightly. Long service leave also comes into it. We have, once you've worked, is it 15 years, and then every 10 years after that, there's a provision in there. So they base that on, we have a provision for that based on how old people are and how many years they've got left to work, and if they've done a number of years here and things like that. And there's a small amount of retirement gratuities left over historically from people who have been here for a while. Not too many of those left, probably 10 at the max, I think. Yep.
Okay, so my second question, so it's quite complex making up that figure. And this may be too much into the detail, but is the holiday pay transferable from one year to another?
Yes, yeah.
It is.
Yep.
So someone can say, I only take 3 weeks now, I want to transfer the other week.
Yeah, correct. We do have a policy that there's a limit of 30 days that anyone can have, and then we will start to enforce leave, if you will. We tend to management just keep on track of that. Usually people will have something that they're building up for that may get to that level. I don't know if
We
you've got anything
do
else.
try to manage that because we believe it's important that people do take breaks, as well as obviously the impact on the balance sheet as well.
It does.
Yeah, but yeah, Manton's right. If someone's got a specific something that they want to accrue leave for, yeah, they just a trip to Europe. They're just got to as long as their manager's aware of it and we're then aware of it, it's fine.
Councillor Scott.
On the financials, Mr Chairman, on page 32, on the reserve funding, the Napier Mussels money still sits in our books. I think I have raised this one before as to the fact that nothing is happening with that particular consent. How long are we going to be holding it until the that was a amount that was posted at the time against any future removal of the mussel farm to make good any area?
So we do have and are still having ongoing dialogue with the mussel company. So it goes quiet periodically and then pops up again, and it's followed that cycle for the nearly 4 years I've been here. So we haven't pushed them to say, is this thing going to live or die? But you're right, it's probably at some point in saying, well, is this farm viable or not? If it's not, let's take it off the books.
Could I ask, is there a lapse date on giving effect to that consent?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd have to have a look.
There must be some
I
form
would
of
imagine there
lapse.
may
It's
be
now
maybe
about 12
some.
years old?
Yeah, and I don't know what the AMA requirements are either.
Yeah.
So I'll check that and let you know.
Yeah, if we
Sure.
could just get some clarity around that particular one, that would be good, thank you. Mr Chairman, once we finish the financials, I do have some questions around the narrative side.
So further financial questions, Councillor Graham, you normally dig away in there, you think we're going okay? Any other financials? Paul will be wrapped. Okay.
I just make one comment that the financial report has caused me to incur some expenditure shortly. I struggle to read the fine print. I'm going to have to go and get myself some glasses in the dark.
It is, and those bigger ones were meant to be on A3, but we had some issues.
So you've recognised the issue, but
Yeah, Paul
you
did
couldn't
point that out that he couldn't read
eliminate
it
or
either.
mitigate the hazard by the sounds of things. No,
Yes, apologies for that. We'll attempt to make those bigger and everything bigger if we can.
Although the new Act, mitigating's not good enough anymore. So, okay, let's get into the narrative then. Did you have questions on the narrative, or before we go there, perhaps, Mr Collins, do you want to talk to anything about the narrative, or are you just happy to take questions?
At this stage, just happy to take questions. It's yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott.
Questions, Mr Chairman. The first is from page 42, and that's regarding our wastewater provision for unsewered communities. It does state here that there are some initiatives being considered in conjunction with Plan Change 6. Is that strictly with regard to unsewered communities within the catchment, or is it broader than that?
I imagine that would be with regard to other initiatives, so not wastewater related.
Yeah. Okay. So there need to be some sort of change in policy to that in order to do.
I think it was just a comment, really, the fact that there are other environmental initiatives which don't fall under that project. Yeah.
My second question is on the next page, on page 43. And that's on the I've written a note on it. I'm not actually sure what it really referred to. Are the historical information available on the sites? What percentage of sites are we? Oh, this is. I'm sorry. With the regard to the has no provisions. Our database on contaminated sites. As a lot of that data was prepared years ago, virtually out of a telephone directory with no scientific evidence whatsoever. What percentage of the sites can we actually not gain information of, and how serious are the gaps in that information?
It's a case of you don't know what you don't know, because many of these sites, they were never registered sheep dip sites, landfills on farms, and unless you go in and investigate them on farm, individually farm by farm, or people volunteer them, it's very difficult to know where they are and if they exist. And the other difficulty is that you might say that you're aware of the existence of a sheep dip, for example, but you can't practicably make an 8,000 hectare farm a contaminated site because you know there was a sheep dip there. You need to be able to know where on the farm it was. So those are the sorts of levels of difficulty we're getting into now. It's getting to the site-specific locations, and look, what portion, look, I just don't know, and it really is a case of you don't know what you don't know, because we haven't been able to...
What's the future of that? I mean, this grew out of that list of sites. It was a fairly high-level identification at the time.
Sure.
Is it a serious problem? Should we be beating ourselves up with it, or is it time just to say unknown and walk away from them?
Well, we're taking a view that we're digitising all of the information we have and making it available, so hence the database, so it's accessible and searchable and available, and we'll add to it as we learn more. But we're not taking specific steps to go and investigate sites unless we have clear evidence of where they are and the issues associated with them.
And are these sites flagged on a limb?
Look, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not sure. I suspect they are, but I'm not sure. Sorry.
And my next question was page 63, that we've got 99% of minor consents have been graded compliant to date. Are there, of that very small proportion that are not compliant, is there any particular trend with it? And I'm not referring to the Central Hawke's Bay one, which is probably before this report was written.
No, there's no particular theme or flavour coming out of it, and it's usually technical non-compliance. We typically don't have significant breaches of or significant non-compliance. It's usually related to failures in water meters, for example, or things that may be beyond the applicant's control that's caused the breach.
Thank you. And my last question, Mr Chairman, is on page 65. I must admit I was a bit surprised to find that a major dam had taken action against its owner, but the English, apart from that, how major was this dam, and what was how big was the breach of, is it what level of impact dam, and what's the...
So it wasn't a breach. It was that I don't recall how big it was. Sorry, but the issue was that there was this bankruptcy proceeding occurred and the dispute about who was responsible, and getting the dam in compliance with the building code. So that's been satisfactorily resolved. And look, I don't recall off the top of my head how big it was.
So it
but
wasn't
clearly
an
big enough
illegal
to.
dam that had been put in. It was just again a sequence of over the compliance.
Yes.
And we have found by aerial spotting one illegal dam
Yeah.
in the past up in
Central
the
Australia,
headwaters of the Nararora. But
Effectively, it was.
okay, so it was a technicality.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, compliments to the staff for this report. It's really helpful, and it must take quite a bit of compilation, but it's a really comprehensive summary of what's going on. I've got a comment and a question. The comment relates to the very first page, which is page 37, and it's the first line there on tourism, and it says comprehensive level of service measure reads comprehensive visitor strategy in place within an overall regional marketing plan. To me, that means that we are fully engaged with Hastings and Napier in particular, and that we're all putting our tourism money into one pot and getting a sensible regional outcome. That is not happening, and the progress report completely ignores the fact that it's not happening. And the reason why I mention this is because unfortunately I'm not going to be here when we have our next long-term plan discussion, which is in early February, but I am totally opposed to us continuing to spend money on tourism or Hawke's Bay tourism until such time as Napier and Hastings fully engage and throw their money into the same pot as us, and we get a regional strategy. So that's my very strong view, and I take the same view on the business economic development as well, which is the next line. So that's my comment. My question relates to page 40, where we refer to our anticipated visit from the Parliamentary Commissioner to the Environment, and I wonder whether we have an update on whether we have a date yet, because it was going to be, as I understood it, relatively early in the new year.
But no, we haven't, Councillor. That's a good reminder. I'll put it on the action list to contact their office. Where we left it was they were going to contact us once she was back on deck, but that reminds me we haven't heard from them.
Any other questions around the narrative? Final comments from you, Mr. Collins. You're happy in your work?
Thank you. Yes, I am. Obviously, yeah, it's a hard time of the cycle where we're doing 10-year plans, and that takes a lot of our time. So we don't want to neglect what we're doing in the present year, and so we continue to do our monthly reports to managers and at least quarterly reports back to you, and highlighting anything that's out of the ordinary. At the moment, there's not anything different than what we have already brought to you, and hopefully that won't be the case for the rest of the year, but yeah, we'll keep you updated.
So if there's no further questions, someone happy to move that we accept that report? You happy with that, Councillor Graham, and seconded by Councillor Bevan? Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Barker.
I'd just like to make a couple of quick comments. Firstly, I think the new format was shifted over to the new format. I think it's really good. It's very clear. I think the summary statements you put on it have improved over the time. I found them very helpful, and I just found it, apart from the size of the font, a better document to read and gave me a better format. The last minor thing I see, I didn't raise at the time, but just more in jest, I see you do hold some overseas funds. I hope it's not in rubles. Sorry? Yeah, just,
South Pacific Pesada, okay. No further speakers. I'll put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. I'd suggest we stop for lunch.